So in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about just the story so far, I suppose, of this awakening, kind of an awakening process or something that's kind of the path of awakening or something to that degree. So for me, all of this started kind of when I was very young, when I was around the age of about 8, where I had this out-of-body experience where I basically left my body and felt like I was everything in the universe, and I felt like I was love itself. And then when I went back into the body, it seemed like there was nobody in the body at all, like no one in it. And it felt like I wasn't this character anymore that I'd called myself, or like my parents had named me Katie, and that my parents also weren't really my parents. And so I didn't really tell anybody about this experience because obviously it sounds a little bit nuts and a little bit crazy to most people who haven't experienced anything like this. So I kept that to myself, and years went on, and cut to the age of 32 when I heard the non-dual message for the first time. I instinctively knew exactly what they were talking about, because I knew that whatever I had experienced at 8 is kind of what they were pointing to in their teachings. And it was one particular video that Muji had made where he asked a question. Sorry, there's like a helicopter going over, so typical. So there was one particular video where Muji asked a question, and it said in it, "But who were you before your mother and father gave you your name?" And somehow that kind of made me relate back to this experience that I'd had when I was younger. And suddenly I realized that I was those things. So I was the universe itself. And I was the love itself, because I never really understood at that time, because I was only 8, I never really understood what any of that was pointing to. So when I heard Muji ask that question, it was like something in me just suddenly knew and was able to kind of like put these connections together. Then I did like 8 years of seeking. Basically, I just was trying to find the answer, because then I kind of thought I really wanted to wake up. Basically, I wanted to have this non-dual awakening that everybody was talking about, but also I was very attached to my music career at the time, and I didn't want to let it go. So I kind of had one foot in and one foot out. So I was looking at a lot of videos, doing a lot of seeking, and then on the path I kind of met somebody who was awake, and I spoke a lot to him just about what it was, and just asked him a lot of questions. And in that time, I suppose that seeking energy really started to kind of ramp up a bit, and I had this 2 weeks where the energy was just, it was just like that I need to know the answer kind of energy, which suddenly I think just burnt out. And I found myself just like kind of letting go of this desire. I think it was seen through that that's what I was doing, that I was trying to find an answer and I was never going to find the answer, and that there was a kind of letting go that happened, a kind of like I'm never going to get it. There was a kind of just a kind of knowing that I wasn't going to get it. And this was at the same time that I'd found Kundalini Activation. So this was probably about a year into Kundalini Activation. So I'd been through a lot of the shadow work stuff. And I do think that what happens on this non-dual path is a lot of people, they get into this seeking pattern, and they kind of ignore their feelings, so they do a lot of spiritual bypassing, which is kind of something that I was doing that I wasn't really aware of that I was doing. And in a way it kind of, I think, makes the seeking energy worse. So I think like the more prepared you are to go in to your feelings, so that's what Kundalini activation opened up in me, this doorway into my shadow self. And so for me it was about grief. So I started to grieve, and this grieving, obviously I was letting go of a lot of things, and I think this is how I managed to get to a point where I just kind of like managed to just kind of let go. But I think this let go that people talk about isn't something that you can kind of manufacture, you know. It just happened very naturally and very organically. And I think so giving up the idea of having a Kundalini awakening allowed me to have a Kundalini awakening, and then in turn giving up the idea of having a non-dual awakening, and then calling in this Kali energy that I've also spoken about in another video, which then helped me see through the illusion of the mind, and gave me a kind of glimpse into what it is like to not believe your thoughts. And that happened for about 3 months, where there was an underlying peace and an underlying acceptance of everything. And before that had happened, there had been a lot of kind of crying about not being able to be the one who wakes you up. You can't wake yourself up. That it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen, and you can't really make it happen. But there are things obviously that you can do that kind of help your system prepare for it, which I think is what Kundalini activation does and has done for me, is that it's kind of like a preparation. But there was also a lot of crying about the loss of control. So this idea that we are the controller, that we are the one controlling everything, this had also come up before this loss of this mind identification, this seeing through my thoughts, seeing through the belief in my thoughts. So there was a lot of crying about control and not being able to control things. And then after that, after 3 months, I had, I suppose, a thought that came up that was about fear. A fear of that because I felt so relaxed in that new mind detached place, that I had this fear came up that was kind of like, don't relax too much, otherwise something really bad will happen, like terrible, so bad that, you know, it will be so catastrophic that you won't be able to deal with it, or something like that. Something like that came up, and then my mind just went back to being how it normally was. So that is the story so far.